The cottage where Darcy lived was situated in a quiet area of Ryburn Valley. It stood on an elevation where, in the summer months, the patches of crowberry and cotton grass adorned the Yorkshire moors in shades of green and white, while in autumn, the heather turned soft red and purple. The limestone walls had a bluish hue, becoming more coal-like at dusk, and no matter how much sunlight touched the cottage, there was always a dampness in the air, making everything, even her clothes, smell of rotting wood, cellar walls, and places where the dead are found. The crackling and spitting of burning logs, the traces of ash on the carpet from embers flying out of the open fireplace, all of this was familiar to Darcy, as were the autumn winds with their tormented voices that battered every window pane at night and drowned out the birdsong when she woke up. But fear never took hold of Darcy's mind. As her father often claimed, everything could be explained. The low rumble piercing the night wasn't the roar of a monster breaking through from another world, but the nighttime moans of heifers warming themselves in the cowshed on the other side of the field. The sudden creak of the floorboards wasn't the heels of a ghost, but the wood contracting under the heat of the plumbing pipes. The illusory evil supposedly hiding in the shadows, or the cold breath of the night following her from room to room to room, were merely drafts. Everything could be explained. Everything, except for the dollhouse. It was more than just a toy, it was a perfect replica of the cottage in every detail: the decorative gables, the stone edging on the front corners, the intricately designed lancet windows. The entire front of the cottage, along with the roof, opened up to reveal the same three-story house with 8 rooms. The stair railings, handrails, and stringers perfectly matched the deep red wood her hands touched every day. Even the bathtub and toilet were adorned with the same golden fixtures and ornate legs as in the real bathroom. The only noticeable difference was the absence of furniture in the rooms, but other than that, the dollhouse was beautifully designed and might have remained hidden in the attic, never to be seen by Darcy, if it weren't for the ghost. It all started one night with a loud crash. Darcy woke up abruptly and looked around her room. Seeing nothing out of place or broken on the floor, she assumed it was a door slamming, possibly due to the constant drafts in the house, and settled back into bed. She was about to fall asleep when the noise came again, this time from the attic above her room. She heard it again as a dull thud, similar to the sound of clumsy footsteps.
Everything can be explained, she reminded herself.
Darcy got out of bed and tiptoed out of her room. Shadows hid in every corner, seeking warmth, and the floorboards groaned and creaked under her steps. Passing her parents' bedroom, she pressed her ear to the door. Hearing her father's loud breathing and knowing how soundly her mother slept, Darcy was sure neither of them would wake up while she searched for the source of the noise. As she approached the attic, a cool breeze blew, brushing her skin and making her shiver. The rough wooden steps ascended into darkness. Darcy slowly approached, waving her hand into the dark as if greeting it. Only the wind responded, breathing quickly, like someone fleeing from danger. She reached for the railing to help herself climb, and as she took the first step, she saw a willow-like shadow moving along the attic wall.
Everything can be explained.
She concluded that a car must have passed by outside, and its headlights created the bright figures slicing through the darkness. But the question about the noises and their causes remained. On the bare wooden floor lay cardboard boxes of various sizes, each labeled for a different room in the house. Cobwebs hung from the wooden beams like old rags, and the air smelled of damp shoes. A small window facing the main road confirmed Darcy's suspicion that the light must have come from a passing car. She would have left had she not noticed a large object in the corner covered by a dusty sheet. For many years, her parents had a habit of hiding gifts in the attic, and with less than 3 weeks until her 9th birthday, Darcy decided that whatever lay under the sheet must be her secret present. A smile spread across her face as she pulled the sheet away and discovered the dollhouse. Darcy was overjoyed. Secret trips to the attic became a nightly routine. She waited for her parents to go to bed, snuck up the attic stairs, and played with the dollhouse. With each visit, the dollhouse was furnished with more decorative furniture and fixtures, which Darcy believed were bought and placed by her parents. From the sleigh bed in her parents' bedroom to the Georgian oak sideboard in the dining room, everything was a perfect miniature replica of their real house. By the end of the first week, all the walls of the dollhouse were covered in floral wallpaper. By the end of the second week, the living room floor was carpeted with the same Saxony rug. But the biggest surprise came 3 days before her birthday. Upon arriving at the attic, Darcy found 3 tiny figurines. Each one was an intricately detailed likeness of Darcy and her parents. She took them out and examined each one in astonishment. The figurine of her father had the same designer glasses, ash-gray hair, and prominent cheekbones. Her mother's hair was styled in the same bob, framing her round face. Her lips resembled seashells, and her eyes were onyx-colored. The doll of Darcy herself wore a beautiful blue floral dress identical to one in her wardrobe. The blonde hair was tied in a ponytail, just as Darcy preferred to wear it. The doll's nose had tiny brown paint spots depicting freckles. Even the scar on Darcy's chin, which she got from falling out of a tree at the age of 5, was engraved on the wooden face of her miniature counterpart. Now the house was completely ready. On the eve of her birthday, Darcy went to the attic for one last play with the dollhouse. She unlatched the small clasp and swung open the facade and roof. Everything was in place, from the tiny furniture to the bowl of quince in the kitchen. Darcy found her wooden parents lying in their wooden bed, just like her real parents on the floor below. To her surprise, the Darcy figurine was on the attic floor, kneeling before a miniature replica of the dollhouse, newly added to the collection. Darcy moved her figurine aside to get a better look at this tiny dollhouse. She didn't want to touch it, as it looked very delicate, but as she peered inside, she heard a noise behind her, like someone shuffling their feet. Darcy turned around and saw the silhouette of a man. It was fleeting, but Darcy was sure the man was unclothed, and his limbs were unnaturally elongated. The vision was so vivid that it lingered in her mind long after it disappeared. Darcy remembered the deep scars crisscrossing his bare torso, the fingers digging into his bluish chest, and the long, misshapen face resembling fused wood. She jumped to her feet and ran to the spot where the man had stood just moments before. With each step, Darcy convinced herself it was a trick of the light fatigue and the unhealthy hue of the attic lamp. But the spot where the naked man had been was empty, occupied only by an inky black shadow on the floor. Darcy reached into the darkness and found nothing but a cold draft that sent shivers down her spine. She returned to the dollhouse. The figurines of her parents were no longer in their beds. Her father was now in the living room. His small wooden body, hanging from a piece of brown twine, one end was attached to a ceiling beam, and the other was wrapped around his little wooden neck. Her mother's figurine was lying in a bathtub filled with water, a stream of red paint trickling from her wrists. The pink cream faces of her parents bore the same expression, twisted with fear. A dull thud echoed from the rooms below the attic. Darcy's heart pounded just as loudly. She ran down the attic stairs and returned to the landing. Opening the door to her parents' bedroom, she found a wild landscape of scattered and crumpled sheets and nothing else. She called out for her mother, only to hear her father's scream in response. The stairs again. Darcy's small feet hurried. She descended. Moonlight spilled over the cold tile floor of the kitchen like a gallon of milk. Darcy slipped and fell on her back. Pain shot through her leg and spine. Her elbows throbbed. She got up and limped to the door that separated the kitchen from the living room, stopping to catch her breath.
Everything can be explained, she repeated, like a mantra. Everything can be explained.
The wind was a werewolf trapped within the walls, the moon a ghost devouring the stars. The house creaked and groaned as if the souls of the damned resided beneath each floorboard. The door handle to the living room chilled her palm as she slowly turned it and pulled back, the hinges moaning in complaint. The gap was only a few centimeters, but her father's bare feet, frozen in the pastel tones of the lifeless night, made her hesitant to open the door wider. She thought it was tears, But when Darcy felt something wet fall onto her face, she looked up and saw a dark water stain on the ceiling, endless like a pool of oil. She stepped back and watched each drop hit the floor. Then she realized the liquid wasn't black but red. Darcy fell to her knees, trembling and sobbing, realizing that the room from which the blood was flowing was the bathroom. The image of her mother's dismembered body flashed through her fragile mind. She retreated into the refuge of the shadow, clutching it around her shoulders like a shawl. This must be a dream, she told herself. Her parents wouldn't end their lives like this. They were happy. They would never leave her. The noise on the attic echoed again. Darcy lifted her head. If this was a dream, she had nothing to fear. And if her father was right, then the figure she saw in the attic could be explained too. Her legs weakened, her nightgown damp with sweat and tears. She walked past the bathroom without looking inside, and once at the foot of the attic stairs, took a deep breath. The world slowed down as she climbed the steps. Everything was as before, the boxes unmoved, cobwebs dangling from each of the four corners, shadows huddling pitifully against every wall. The dollhouse stood nearby, glowing dimly like a Halloween pumpkin, a grim symbol of her fate. She approached it cautiously. The figurines of her parents remained unchanged, frozen in their death tableau. She knelt before the dollhouse and saw that her own little model was also kneeling, right in front of the miniature dollhouse. A red line was visible on the small figurine's neck, as if something had slashed the girl's throat. At that moment, a draft brushed Darcy's neck, and out of the corner of her eye, she saw a hand. The tips of each finger were wrapped in gauze, dark blood seeping through as if meticulous work had stained the skin down to the flesh. The back of the hand was scarred, thick as leeches, and the rasping breath of failing lungs stirred her hair. The glint of a small knife narrowed her pupils, and its cold blade on her throat stifled the words she so desperately wanted to speak but could not.
Everything can be explained. Everything can be explained. Everything can be explained.